All right. It's Freedom Phil. Today's topic: women start taking more sex and want it more. Thoughts on this? By the way, like and subscribe, and always turn. Watching this later, 150, 1.75. That's what I watch things at. Let's get into it. I thought it was an interesting conversation. I was listening to Aaron Clary, and he's talking about this article and these people talking that just a little bit, not as much as you give a man, obviously, but a small amount. And a lot of women just felt like their libido was back at what it was in their 20s. And, you can kind of think about it from a natural perspective. I mean, even guys, it's not just, you see some guys that work out, even if they're not taking testosterone, just the physical activity it increases it. And the lack of weight is horrible for it. Never mind the fact, I mean, I'm not the first to point this out. Many have said this. The idea that you look over at your partner and they're just unattractive. Now, but then you throw this to another level. What if you, because your hormones are now not 30, you're not 20, you're not 30, you're late 30s, early 40s or 50s. And if you just had that particular additive, you'd want to do it in the car or something crazy. I mean, you hear about these stories about these women like this. They say there are some drawbacks. I mean, women who take way too much of it, one, they become like a sex demon. Leads to the point where even the guy's like, hey, I need to get some sleep. But there's also a case where maybe a little deepening of the voice, a little maybe hair that you didn't really want. See, it's kind of a, got to be a little careful with this stuff. But it's funny. Back in the early 2000s, when other countries were already doing this, they could have done this. And I get to thinking about it. Are they finally pulling this genie out of the bottle, pulling this miracle out? Because they're realizing sex is how we keep businesses running in America. Sex is all of it. And they're like, it's not. Okay, children are a certain degree. Yeah, okay, so as the testosterone in men goes down a bit, they have kids, they're more in dad mode then. Women, as well, their levels go down along with some of the other things. And to some degree, women, it's like, I'm just repulsed by my husband. Yeah, well, maybe that's because your hormonal levels are shit. And you're both, fat. And that's, and that's another thing. When it comes to guys, too, let's be honest about it. Yeah, you do need to look good. You do need muscular, just like women need to look good. But I mean, guys will let a lot of things women do slide. As where with women, it's like, they're the ones that are the gatekeepers. But I just can't help but think sex has been the way our country, our government, it's the way societies are built. Also, there's a little lizard over there. I don't know if you can see him. Is he right there? Where are you? Where are you, little guy? Yeah, there he is. Check that out, lizard. So we're not quite to the normal time of the wasteland. Also, helicopter somewhere up there. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see a little lizard. My dog actually perks up. What? Something moved. But yeah, sex is why we buy fancy cars. Why we're buying big-ass pickups, furniture, jewelry. Sex is why a man's willing to put up with a house that's like $500,000 to $1 million for 30 years. Because baby wants that house, and she'll lie to herself and say, it's because the good schools. You don't want to raise your kids around someone else's bastard children, But no, the real reason is that she wants to show off how much she's worth, how much she can get. My pussy gets this much. And he, being a guy, is horny as hell. He doesn't, most guys, whether it was from mica or granite, like unless you're like an investor property and you're just putting in the granite, which by the way, I wouldn't curse doing that job upon people. If you've ever had to move the stuff, it's a nightmare. He couldn't care less whether it's Formica or granite. She cares about that and how much money's made on that, and how much is a guy willing to give up for the pussy. How much money? Now, no straight man I've ever seen ever said, I won't live in this house because it doesn't have granite countertops. The only use for those granite countertops, in a man's perspective, is to bang your wife on them, your girlfriend, your whatever. That's the only reason you fucking care about that shit. Now imagine you got an entire economy based on sex. You know, because we have excess, so much excess in America, and people don't even notice it. They just spend so much of it. They spend all their excess to the point where they excessively spend to the point where they don't have excess. They have debt. But imagine you get to that point in your life where without that little bit of spark, and this includes dudes too, you know, where they're just like, how many times have you watched TV and there's some boner pill? Hell, you're watching online and some ad for boner pill. They figure they know what your age is. They know what you're looking for. They're like, oh, you're about that age. Oh, or the hair loss ads. Being a guy, of course, then again, they facial recognition type of crap on these phones. Oh, you're bald. Are you insecure about your hair? No, I don't give a shit. I wish the rest of it would go out. Be like, just either you all be there or all out. I just shaved my head. I'm looking good. Let's check this out. Yeah, baby. Smooth head. But imagine just the market loss they've lost with people that have hit that age where the fire's gone. Like people that are in their peak earning, like where they've already invested, their house is paid off, but they're like, well, we have enough. Maybe at best, they're getting a vacation home or they're taking trips. They're not pissing away their money like they used to. I think that's why they're finally doing this. And of course, then you got old boomers. One last thing before they go. But make no mistake, this is about the Gen Xers at this point. Miserable, bored, sexless Gen Xers. And imagine if she took just a little bit of that testosterone, not like a man's dose, but a little bit, and suddenly she feels like she's 20 again. She's also a bit more argumentative. She's got to make her point. She's assertive, and she's fucking horny. I wonder how many marriages would be saved. And this comes back to it. And if not a saved marriage, if nothing else, people that are single going out and having a nightlife. Maybe make bars great again. You remember back when you could go to the bar and you both loosened up from a few drinks? Well, now if one drop of liquor touches her lips, you remember that old feminist adage when the what was it called? Temperance movement. No, if a man drinks alcohol, his one drop touches his lips, they will not touch ours. Maybe women can go back to dancing and having a drink, having some fun. Boats, jet skis, good times. And you believe me, men, young, old, whatever, they'll work to make that shit happen. They will work to make that shit happen. Because they're like, yeah, baby, even if it's their wife. And they're both 50 years old. The fact that he's like, at the end of the day, he feels good. He feels like a champ. And she's just had multiple orgasms. You'd be surprised what happy people will accomplish, what they're willing to do. And they might even be like, hey, let's go hiking. Let's go have some fun. Let's go do something. Let's go take up dancing. It's almost like society was okay with you being a dead American. And I just my outlook, my theory. Until the economy starts to suffer. Until you stop buying shit. Until people get to that point where they finally realize, hey, it's all just a circus. It's, capitalism. I love it for its options. I hate it for its waste. Consumerism is a curse. But when consumerism starts to wane, not die, but wane, and in this generation, the segment of the population that has the most fucking money usually, that's scary for businesses. I'm just saying, that's my theory is the reason they let things happen isn't because they now just finally realized it's good. Because other countries realized it 20, 25, 30 years ago, or even further from the scientific community. No, it's now they see a use in it. They see profit. So just keep that in mind when you see some of these things like they're like, we have this miracle cure for your sex life or your hair or something. They see a profit in it. My inner Ferengi speaks. But I'd be interested in the long run, just as a closing thought, to see You know, if there's an increase, an uptick in the economy because people are having fucking fun again. Fun. Good sex, fun, good times, adventure. Whether they're young people are always doing it in some way, somehow. But I gotta be honest, the testosterone levels in young men these days is way lower than it used to be. So they're not really having fun. Hell, who knows? Maybe leftists, they could actually have fun for once. Maybe get a little thin, have a lot of good, hot, heavy sex and shit. And those staunchy conservatives, in that article he was talking about, and I thought this was interesting. We had went to the couples church, marriage thing, where a bunch of miserable people get together for years, and it didn't help a damn thing. But just a little bit of testosterone, a little shot in her butt. And she's like ready. She's a wild animal. This is what I would wonder, though. Cappy, he pointed us out, too. Because if one drop of liquor touches her lips, that's considered maybe an SA, an R situation. Because she can't make a decision once she's decided to drink. You, as a guy, you're totally responsible for everything you do. But something he said was, are they going to look at testosterone the same way? Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought. Our lady's going to go, I wouldn't have been doing that, but I was on testosterone and I turned into a sex demon. I was a fucking succubus. It's not my fault. It's the testosterone. Oh, shut up, bitch. That's the same thing with booze, by the way. Sometimes, there are people that get blacked out drunk and things happen. But sometimes you get blacked out drunk, and yes, you're just loosened up and horny. Male, female, whatever. You're like, yeah, what the hell? I just wonder if we're going to hear those articles 5-10 years down the line. Also, much like when you're taking some odd chemicals in your body, are we going to see an increase in fitness? And then also maybe there are going to be some adverse side effects, like the same thing. I mean, that seems to be the thing we do these days. They're trying to trans the kids and get the women to fuck. They're trying to get women back in the mood. They're trying to get guys back in shape. And I actually have this kind of rule, and this will be the ultimate closing thought. Once you hit a certain age, you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want as far as drugs, pharmaceutical or otherwise. If you're in your 60s, fuck yeah, you should be doing steroids if you want to. And I'm talking about the clean ones, not like the old ones where your balls shrivel and all that shit. I'm saying, yeah, you should. Why not? Shit, you're 60-some years old. Hell, you may not even make it to 70. If you're 70 years old, you should take up all the crazy shit. Like, if you get to the point where you're, in a wheelchair and it's coming to the end, that's when you should take up the heavy drugs. Like, it's time to do heroin. I'm only half joking about that. I mean, don't do all the crazy stuff when you're young, because, if you end up as a living vegetable, that'd suck. But if you're 60-some years old and you want to take something, hopefully, maybe your hair grows back, or forget the hair, go clean shaven, man, and you start being, you start having more heart rate and pumping iron, and you're feeling good, and you're hiking. Fuck yeah! I mean, what's the point in working your entire goddamn life, paying all those bills, all these taxes, all this crap, and most of you don't even pay taxes, but that's just because public school systems and all the benefits you get. But let's just skip that. All the benefits you get. What's the point in doing all that shit if you get to 60-something years old and retire, and all you got to look forward to, and don't get me wrong, fishing's great, you got a few hobbies, and you live with this other person, and you never fuck. What's the point? Like, Jesus Christ, that's a demotivator for being a good person, being a good, hardworking person. If I've ever heard one, it gets you different. You have love. Oh, screw that crap. Love can involve sex. Just saying. Anyways, peace. Take it easy.